The difficulty of the contested shot is something that 2K has never really gotten quite right in their games. Historically, contested shots have been far too easy to make. I'm sure you all remember Patch 4 in NBA 2K15 making you want to pull your hair out. Zigzag cheesing and three-point chucking became ridiculously too efficient, to the point where any concept of playing actual offense was thrown out the window. It made the game unplayable from a simulation gaming perspective, and turned 2K15 into an arcade game. Another problem the perfect release cheese was that it made shooting attributes irrelevant. What's the point in using a shooter like Klay Thompson if you can master any player's release and shoot like him anyway? This made the realism and strategic elements of the game completely moot. On defense, you couldn't help off of below-average shooters because everyone had the capacity to be Klay Thompson. You had no need to worry about balancing your lineups with shooting either, because anyone could shoot. In 2K16, they've clearly made it a priority to fix this cheese, but personally, I believe they've gone a bit too far in the other direction, and made semi-contested shots too difficult to hit. This is well detailed in an excellent article written by Chase Bencote on the Operation Sports forum, which is linked in the description. In my playing experience, tight contests, where the defender is within 2 to 4 feet of the shooter, are far more effective at bothering my shot than they really should be. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, seeing the 2 feet of space you need to pull up and hit with an elite shooter, only to end up with little more than a prayer. My opinion is supported in the data. According to the Operation Sports article, the threes shot in 2K16 with a defender within 0 to 2 feet only go in at a rate of 10% compared to 23 in the real NBA. Similarly, when a defender is within 2 to 4 feet, shots go in roughly 17% of the time in 2K16 compared to 29% in the real NBA. While clearly much better than 2K15, 2K16's contested shot mechanics present issues of their own. A lot of users have wisened up to the fact that the game overpenalizes these semi-contested shots, and accordingly give the ball handler that extra foot or two of cushion they need to stay in front. This compromises the realism factor of elite scorers being able to make you pay when given that sliver of space. This leads into the second shortcoming of the system. It undervalues players like Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, who excel at taking and making a high volume of shots with a sliver of space to operate. James Harden, for example, shoots 38% on shots contested within 2 to 4 feet. Even with the Deadeye and Shot Creator badges, he is still nowhere near this in 2K. And same goes for other elite scorers. Just think of how many games you've pulled up for typical Curry shots, only to end up going something like 2 for 13 at the end. My final problem with the current system is a more subjective one. The over-effectiveness of late shot contests makes the concept of heat check shots a lost concept in the game. There aren't too many great stats for this, but anyone who's played or watched basketball definitely knows it's a thing. I think the ideal shooting system should be a happy medium between what we had in 2K15 and what we have now in 16 to resolve the issues of each. As a basketball sim game, the challenge is juggling balanced and responsive gameplay with realism, so I'll address both angles in my proposed ideas. First idea, I think green releases should be obtainable on semi-contested shots. I'll define semi-contested as the shooter having at least 2 to 3 feet to shoot. There would obviously need to be limitations to this, so we don't get taken back to zigzag cheese land. Contested green releases would be limited only to players who are heating up with 1 ring or on fire with 2 rings. This would provide a better balance from both a gameplay and realism standpoint compared to what we've got currently. From a gameplay perspective, it would make more sense basing makes and misses more on skill and user timing rather than so much of the frustrating randomness in 2K16, making hot-cold streaks more organic and less because the game is deciding it's not your turn to score yet. From a realism perspective, it also makes sense. It requires the user to get their player good looks to get in a rhythm and heat up. So unlike 2K15, your player will have to be actually on fire to hit heat check shots. What a concept, right? Obviously, the system would need to make the green release timing difficulty just right, so it's possible for elite users to hit a couple greens in a row without going overboard into 3-point cheesing territory. In general, I'd also like to see badly timed jumpers penalized more heavily. This way it'll help to balance out the reward of perfect timings and help maintain somewhat realistic jump shot percentages from a simulation perspective, as well as penalizing opponents who get overzealous with their chucking from a game balance perspective. The tricky thing with green releases is balancing them in a way that maintains the balance of the game and still reflects the ratings of the shooter. The easiest solution is to simply make the green release a multiplier to the shooter's base shot percentage. This isn't perfect though, since it's enraging to many of us to see our hard-earned green release clank off the rim, usually horribly. The problem with making green releases guaranteed scores though, is it makes an on-fire Rajon Rondo just as deadly as an on-fire Stephen Curry, which I hope we can all agree is just nonsense. At this point, I think the missed green release is a necessary evil. I would rather miss 100 green releases than lose a game because some noob figured out a quirk in Rondo's release to score every time. For those of you who really hate seeing green releases missed, though, I do have another idea. Maybe there could be a way to make the perfect timing interval wider for better shooters and higher quality shots. The implementation of this would be very difficult though, as it would require a ton of in-game testing of user reaction time under different circumstances. I think it can be done in a balanced way eventually if 2K can record user release shot data over an extended period of time, but I don't think we're quite there yet. To try and better visualize how all these different variables can be properly balanced against one another, I created a shot simulator spreadsheet, which is linked in the description. Feel free to play around with the different assumptions in the blue outlined input cells and see what shot percentages get spit out under the green highlighted output cells. You can also contrast your results to the real-life NBA averages of these shots, which I've taken from SportsVU data on the NBA's website, also linked in the description. And of course, feel free to ask away in the comments if you're curious about the math I used to create the spreadsheet, and I'll do my best to explain. Also make sure to let me know if you have any of your own ideas to add about how 2K could improve its shot system to be more enjoyable and realistic. And on the off chance you love this crazy system I've thought up, feel free to tweet it at the 2K developers. With luck, it can help spark development of a more refined shooting system to create a more enjoyable game for all of us.